All right. This is Jake and Jacob.
And I'm Jacob.
We're going to do another retro review. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, man, we're gonna go back in time and watch an old movie.
So just a little refresher, if you haven't seen the first instance of our retro reviews, me and Jacob are taking turns we're both going to watch a classic film, but it's going to be a film that one of us hasn't seen before. Last week was Jacob's turn to choose a movie, which was Indiana Jones Temple of Doom. I'll put a link to it at the end because you can't put annotations anymore. And this week it's my turn to choose. So I have chose the film, which I will reveal now. Goodfellas. It is a great film. I actually haven't seen it in a long time. I can't really remember much outside of Joe Pesci's bits, but I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct, Jacob, you are not too familiar with all the Italian mob movies and stuff like that.
Or any ethnic mob movie. I haven't seen. I haven't seen any mob. I'm not a Goodfellas, Godfather kind of guy. I don't really get into them. So
for now, until you see this and you'll be like, "Whoa, I see what a big deal is."
Then yeah, I might get really into this and become a Godfather myself.
I would have chose Godfather, but Godfather is more high art. That's Kino. This is yeah, and that's a long ass movie, and there's 2 parts to it. Whereas this is a nice little concise, Goodfellas. Everyone knows it's a great movie. All right, let's watch it. All right, we just finished watching Goodfellas with Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, and Joe Pesci, directed by Martin Scorsese.
I know I'd go from rags to riches.
To me, being a gangster was better than being president of the United States.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, we just finished watching it. It's a 2 hour, 20 minute long movie. I haven't seen this movie in probably over 10 years. So I should have picked a movie I was more familiar with, because it was kind of fresh for me again for the first time. I don't remember those key scenes with Joe Pesci being "You say I'm funny," pointing out how a clown, and then there's a lot of the other pinnacle moments, certain character deaths and stuff like that. But basically the movie follows character Henry Hill trying to be a gangster, growing up in Brooklyn. He's also not a full-blooded Italian, so that works against him. But they follow him as a kid up until when he meets the 2 other main characters, Tommy and Jimmy, and then it pretty much follows his life. But I'll let Jacob talk about his initial thoughts on the movie Goodfellas.
This is my first time seeing Goodfellas. It was my turn to see a movie, and I had quite the long experience, which you can only say about any Martin Scorsese film. This movie opens up brilliantly. I like the introduction to Ray Liotta as Henry Hill. It's a very interesting way to be introduced into this whole gangster life. It's constantly a narrated movie by, I guess, Ray Liotta as Henry Hill, and you meet him kind of fantasizing about becoming a gangster. Now, some people might, firefighters, cops, astronauts. Not old Henry Hill. He wants to be a gangster. He's just saw the power, the anything comes, anything you want.
He was working within that world a little bit, right?
Exactly. So he started off small, deliveries, and then you see how he becomes such part of the family that they would help him out, make sure that his parents wouldn't find out he wasn't in school. So this movie really sets the tone right away that Henry Hill became a gangster through admiration, through want, and became part of a family. And it really kind of eclipses this world and how it is as a family. So in the first, I would say, childhood portion of this movie, you really understand why Henry Hill wanted to be in this world, which is absolutely done wonderfully. It's narrated. It's constantly kind of cutting through all the major parts of when he's younger, how he first started into it, and then his big first, I guess, thing he did, which was blowing up these cars, and then getting arrested for selling cigarettes. And I like that it's like this huge graduation scene where he comes out of court and they're like, yeah, you popped your cherry, his first pinch. And he's like, yeah, you didn't rat on us. And it's so important that, like, you know, his family, you guys don't rat on each other. So you really are invested in Henry, and you can invest into more characters later. But up to the childhood part of this movie, it really just shows everything you kind of expect going forward for the next part of the movie. And then we get into the adulthood. Now, the adulthood part of Henry Hill, I would say almost chapter 2 of it all, up to the part where you see in the intro of the movie with the body in the trunk. Movie is brilliant. It's constantly doing this style of showing major parts without it being like almost like these long scenes. It's this editing style of narration through Karen Hill and Henry Hill. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of showing both their lives going into the gangster life.
Karen being Henry's like spouse,
yeah. So like how they meet, her not really understanding because, you know, he lies a bit. He says it's Jewish, and she knows that he's lying, but she's not really questioning a lot of it. She's not really questioning where the money comes from. He says, "Oh, I'm a construction worker," like silly things like that, and you see that he gets everything. There's power over cops, over everything being a gangster, and it's a wonderful life. But simply to put that's pretty much where the movie kind of... After that, once you see the conflict with Joe Pesci and this gangster insulted him...
Up until like the jail scene.
Up to that, pretty much. Right when they all go to jail. And this once again, wonderful life in jail. Like they get all this food. They get treated with respect. And it's just the life they live. Up to after that, though, the movie takes a dip. And I think it's probably the way they're telling this story, the way that Martin Scorsese is editing and telling the story in this full narration, kind of back and forth narration, of just only showing moments in the life. Because the part of why this movie is so interesting, it's seeing Henry Hill in this character loving and the power behind being a gangster. When it turned into the narcotics part of the movie and almost like a cartel, like smuggling, and he kind of betrays Paulie, I do see the importance. Like it's very important to have a conflict, have to see a character go downhill, but the movie style of editing and storytelling does not work for the narcotics point of view. It actually, I find, hurts the movie. It doesn't tell the right part of the story of the movie. And that's when the movie starts to feel like, I gotta check my watch 48 times, please be over. Besides that, like, acting is just amazing. The dialogue and script is just delicious. I could say a lot about it. We'll get more into it. I just want to get more of your thoughts after a 10-year hiatus.
Yeah. So I couldn't really remember. I kept like comparing this movie to Godfather in my head because there's obviously a lot of similarities in themes. Not that they're too similar, but obviously it's both about like the gangster type movies. And yeah, but I think I actually prefer Godfather over Goodfellas, which I'm sure a lot of people do. The movie kind of plays out in a way where it is following a story, but like it feels like it's always trying to like find like what's going to happen, what's the plot, and then the next scene happens or next chapter happens, which is good and all, and it's fun to follow his life. But you're sort of, I feel like a modern day audience, you're kind of waiting for that one. What is like the problem? What is the issue they're trying to solve? But it never quite happens. You're like getting to it, and then like, well, okay, we're in the next stage of his life. So I mean, I want to say like you're pretty much like hooked for like almost like 3/4 of the movie, and then like the last little bit, like there's some good stuff happening, but it's kind of like more of the same, and you're like it's just like the rest of like Henry's demise, but still like I don't know, it's like some great moments in this movie. Like I want to talk about like favorite scenes, but I don't know if you have anything else.
It's fuck, a lot of F-bombs. 300 to be according. Joe Pesci maybe have the world record for saying fuck you. The funny man scene is obviously iconic.
He said, no, you're going to tell me something today, tough guy. I said, all right, I'll tell you something. Go fuck your mother. Bing, pow, boom, bing. You saw the paper, Anthony. My head was up like this today.
Maybe almost as iconic as Ray Liotta laugh. I have, before I could even before I've seen this movie, that was a huge meme or gif all over the internet of Ray just cocking back his neck and just that weird laugh he does. His eyes pop. Like it is. I think I laughed at it because that knowing of, being the day and age where you see that over and over again. Now it's like, oh, I finally see it in the movie.
Yeah, you see the source material.
Funny how? I mean, what's funny about it?
Tommy, no, you got it all wrong.
Oh, Anthony. He's a big boy. He knows what he said. What'd you say?
You're right.
Funny how? What?
Just, you know, you're funny.
But overall favorite scene isn't really the funny man scene for me. It's actually it's majority of the childhood scene. I love the childhood stuff a lot. I think it's just told brilliantly. But I do really like the arc of when he kind of first meets Karen, where at first he's just like looking at his watch a lot. He's like, I don't care about this broad. And then she like stands up to him. She's like, how dare you stand me up? And he's just like, ooh, she's feisty. I'm into her. Like that little arc actually like really showed a new depth to the character that you needed. And I was just so invested in that particular point in the movie and that arc.
There's a lot of good parts. Like obviously the part where like Joe Pesci's character is being made. That's like a big scene because you're like, you know what I mean? It's a big twist and you're like, oh shit. But I don't know. I always like love things like this in movies. So I love when like Henry so he finds out that Karen's neighbor across the street was like sort of like, you know, giving her the wrong vibes and like touching her and stuff. And so he just like goes over with his pistol and he's like hit him his butt there and he just like beats the shit out of him. Just like, and I just like love when, like, I know it sounds pretty morbid, but I love when like people of power like that are like messed with, like those whole like you messed with the wrong guy kind of moments, and like just seeing like how that person's gonna react. And it pretty much works out the way you think it would. But yeah.
What do you want, fucko? You want something? Huh?
Oh, hey! What are you doing?
I swear my fucking mother, if you touch her again, you're dead!
Don't shoot!
And like, yeah, I think that whole childhood scene is like really strong. Like when, like it really hooks you from the start there. But yeah, what would you, unless you have anything else to add?
Well, I mean, I just say like for seeing it in 2018 for a movie that came out in 1990, obviously like you had a lot of comparisons to Godfather. For me, it was actually more of I think 2013 Martin Scorsese film Wolf on Wall Street. I saw a lot of like storytelling and directing, which makes sense. Same director, just like all these years, 23 years later. Especially with Leonardo character, I feel like he was inspired a lot by how Ray Liotta. His acting in this movie. There's a lot of similarities. Obviously, also dropping the F-bomb. There was, I think, 587 F-bombs. And maybe Martin just needed that number one title of most F-bombs. James Cameron's got number one movie. Martin's got to have number one F-bombs. So there's a lot of, for me, comparison to a movie I have seen. This makes me excited to see other ethnical mobster movies now. But overall, like impressions, I'm really impressed. It's just maybe I know with Martin Scorsese they're gonna be long movies, and he really likes to tell a full story, which can be a good or bad thing, depending how you want to go into a film. But for me, 2.5 hours could have been cut down to maybe almost 2 hours. It gets a little dragged on, and maybe the style of storytelling can hurt it. But overall, I think I'm gonna give this a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree. I think even if it does feel long to you, it's like the content that's in there is like so well done that it's hard not to like grade it well. So I'm gonna also give it an 8 out of 10.
In a world that's powered by violence, on the streets where the violent have power, a new generation carries on an old tradition.
And this has been Jake and Jacob.
And I'm Jacob. Boy.
Ah, look at that. You made it to the end of the video.
Hey, now that you're here, you can click on one of our older videos.
We've done some reviews on this and that, and I particularly like this.
I like the one on the left, to be honest.
Oh, well, we always got that thing in the middle. It looks pretty cool. It's one of those subscribe buttons.
Anyways, thanks for making it to the end. Bye-bye.